Ozonics, Killerwinds podcast back again. I'm Cole Tanner.
I'm Nick Simon.
Today, we're doing something a little different.
Yep.
I think we've realized that what I really enjoy is the riff sessions.
Yes.
Little riff sesh. But we're gonna do a hybrid riff sesh Q&A riff sesh where Nick knows what the questions are. I don't. I mean, I see the piece of paper, but I can't read upside down. So Don't worry, I can't read. I see the word the. Yeah. We're talking about the. No.
Yep.
So we're doing a Q&A. You had to do all the hard work. I basically just had to sit down and look ugly.
Yep. So after 2 seasons of consumer shows, listening to Cole talk in my ear, listening to him on the camera, doing seminars, getting questions through, social media and stuff like that, I compiled a list of, kind of some common questions that we get, and we thought it'd be a good thing to kind of talk about. So,
Yep.
I guess we'll get right into it.
So you have a big list.
It's a huge list.
I can read upside down, and it goes 1 to 20. Yep. I don't know if we're going to do 20.
No, and that's the thing too.
That might get a little aggressive. We might go for a world record long podcast.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the questions will answer multiple. Your answer will answer most. Yeah. Wow. Good start.
Supercalifragilistic on the multiple.
Your answer to these questions will probably answer multiple questions.
Yep.
So
well, and I think what you said earlier, I think is important because interestingly, we do hear the same questions over and over and over. And I feel like I said, I've been at Ozonics since 2016. When I got to Ozonics, we didn't have much for instructional videos.
Yeah.
And it's funny to think like 2016, that's almost 8 years ago now. But from when I started, but even since then, the way we all digest information has really changed. It's not that YouTube didn't exist in 2016, because it absolutely did. Mm-hmm. But I feel like when we got there, that was one thing that I was like, man, when I want to look for stuff, I like to watch videos.
Yeah.
I might Google it, but I end up watching a video. And so Ozonics, we made a really big push to do more videos. And you can see those original videos way back. Those were done in like my basement.
Yeah.
Literally.
Seriously.
Dude, it's funny. We did them in my basement in the middle of the summer. And again, trying to make it quiet.
No AC.
Yeah, we turned the AC off. Well, Tatum got so mad because if she'd come over the other day, the house would be like blazing hot.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just like did in my basement, like against my workbench. And I just like put up a little Ozonics sticker on the back wall. But my point is we've done lots of videos answering a lot of this stuff. But again, not everybody watches them. They don't know about them. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it does. The hard thing about the website is they get buried on the website. They get buried on YouTube. We've tried to do a better job to try to organize stuff. But so we do hear a lot of these questions quite often. But we just thought, you know what? Let's go through it.
Yep. Okay.
Here
we go. So the first question I wanted to ask.
I apologize for the next how many minutes of just nonstop talking I'm going to be doing.
No, that's all right. Okay. So the first one is that I heard multiple times throughout this show season was, how long can you expect a unit to last? So when they first buy it, what's the longevity of the unit itself?
Yep, absolutely. So the first thing I always say about that is what it really comes down to, and I think when I hear that question, what I feel like people are really asking is, how long is it going to produce ozone?
Exactly.
Or how long is my battery going to last?
Yep.
So let's deal with the ozone part of it first. One of the things I always say about that is that I think it's a real testament to how Scott, the owner of Ozonics, who he is and how he handles himself and who he wants to be in his character.
Yep.
Because the fact of the matter is that Scott and Ozonics could very easily say like, well, it's going to produce ozone forever.
Yeah.
Like you never have to replace it and never anything you have to do because it will produce ozone forever.
Yeah.
Right. If you had a ozone analyzer testing the parts per million of the unit 20 years from now after use, it's still going to produce some amount of ozone.
Right.
You follow me?
Yep.
It's going to produce ozone, like most likely. But what we always talk about is, you can't see this if you're listening to me, but I always, I'm a visual hands guy. This optimum ozone output.
Yep.
So this number that we like the units to be within before it leaves our manufacturing facilities, that optimum ozone output. So is it going to stay in that optimum ozone output forever? No. We generally say on average use, you're looking at 3 to 4 years on average use. Now that's where guys go, what's average use? That's a great question, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's tricky. Some guys are the weekend warriors like you and me that are just hunting on Saturdays and on Sundays and, like taking some PTO in late October, early November. So average use for us is different than the guy that's retired or the guy that hunts full time. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So you just have to really kind of take that for what it's worth. So we generally say that 3 to 4 year window on average use, you're going to stay at that optimum ozone output.
Okay.
But this is again where I come back to what I said at the beginning about it's a real testament to the character of Scott. It's not that after 3 to 4 years, then because you think personal listeners go, well, geez, if it falls outside that ozone output level, then what next? Like, what do I do now? I just got to buy another one? Not exactly. We do have a refurbishment program, which means you can send your Ozonics unit to us. We replace the coil, replace the fan, retest the unit, make sure it requalifies, meets all of our standards, and we ship it back to you for a set fee, $130, $150, depending on the unit. And then you've got another, 3 to 4 year window. We don't like to refurbish them more than once. Again, we start taking those units apart, messing with the wires and the components. It can really compromise the integrity of that stuff.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, roundaboutly trying to get back to the question and the answer, generally speaking, we tell guys if it's 3 to 4 years and you can refurbish it once, you're looking at 8 to 10 years on the unit.
Yep.
The thing that I always say next is tell me one thing that you still use from 8 to 10 years ago. Now, I use lots of stuff from 8, 10 years ago. So my Kuyu hats from 8 years ago.
Camel.
Yeah. And I'm the type of guy that like uses it until it's like I'm dragging it on the ground.
Hanging by a thread.
But most people, most guys are in 8 to 10 years are going to have how many, 3 or 4 or 5 bows?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, we don't have a lot of stuff. I mean, from that long ago, how many cell phones are you going to go through in 8 to 10 years?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's an electronic piece of equipment.
Yep.
So that's what I always tell people about that ozone. The biggest thing I would say that's going to help the life of your unit though, is go get a can of dry compressed air and spray off that coil, spray off the fan. No pun intended, but you'll be blown away by how much dust and debris will come off that coil.
Yep.
I always tell people, think about that coil like a ceiling fan. You're in your house, that ceiling fan is constantly spinning and circulating air. If you stop the fan and you go up, you can play tic-tac-toe on the blade. It's not that your house is dirty.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that it's constantly pushing that air and it naturally collects dust and debris. I mean, go in your office at work and take your finger along the top of your computer screen.
Yep.
It's just the fact that it's the electromagnetic field and the electricity that's running through that stuff. It just naturally just collects dust, debris, everything else. That coil there's current running through it.
Yep.
And so keeping that coil clean can really help you. If you never did that, that's where, if you never sprayed it off ever, you're looking at that 3 to 4 years. If you spray it off, you can make that last even longer.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing I'll say with that as well is the best way to determine and then that's the other question guys always say, well, how do I know when it's bad?
Yeah.
Well, you could take it into a dark room, turn the lights off, look at that coil, turn the unit on, kind of tilt the unit and look at that coil on the inside. And if you don't see it really glowing uniformly purple all the way across, that's a great way. Or if all of a sudden you start getting winded by deer in situations where you didn't before, that's a good indicator. We'll have people call all the time that are at that 3 to 4 year window. We can look them up in our system.
Yep.
And then they go, man, dude, I've had great luck with this thing for years. I can't remember the last time I got winded by deer, but all of a sudden this year, like, I'm getting blown up.
Yeah.
How long have you had your unit? Oh, man, I guess, when did I buy that? 2020, 2019, 2018?
Yeah.
Oh, it was 2018. Hell yeah, man. Like, you're at 5 years. Like, that's probably thinking about refurbishing it.
Yep.
Do you ever spray it off? Do you ever dry compressed air? Oh, I never even thought about that.
Yep.
And so that's the type of stuff that, again, I completely get it when people don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
But again, 3 to 4 years, if you spray it off, it's going to help you. But we can refurbishment if not. And then again, the big thing about batteries, we talked about ozone when it comes to batteries is, dude, I've got batteries from when I started here, at my house that I still use. I mean, it's funny because when I first started, I didn't I had been running HR 200s way back before I worked at Ozonics when I first met Scott. And then I was lucky enough to get an HR 300. And I remember riding CT on my batteries. I still have those. I see them every once in a while. I saw them last fall. I was like, oh, geez, that's from 2016.
That's awesome.
what it really boils down to is it's using them is important, but obviously the big thing is how you store them.
Exactly.
The biggest thing about lithium-ion batteries, they're not like a nickel-based battery. They don't take a set. The great thing about lithium-ion batteries and why we use them in the unit is because if you looked at the performance of the unit from 100% to 0%, it's going to run at peak performance 190, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 5, and then it's going to fall.
Right.
So lithium batteries, I mean, it's like if the lithium battery was a rag, it's just squeezing out that water at a consistent pace till the very end, and then there's nothing left.
Yeah.
It dies right at the end.
Yep.
It's not like it just like all of a sudden you notice a flashlight like dim as it goes.
Yeah,
It's not like that.
Yep.
But the hardest thing on lithium-ion batteries is when they sit empty. Mm-hmm. That's what a lot of people do is they leave them in the unit, they leave them in their charger, or they just hunt with it the last day and then they just set it on the shelf.
Yep.
If you leave the batteries in the unit, it will naturally trickle the batteries over the course of time.
Yep.
So just like no different than a 4-wheeler battery in your garage, if you leave it plugged in all winter, you go out there in the next spring, it's click, 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 click. You follow? Mm-hmm. So the biggest thing I say is always tell people is don't store the battery in the unit. Don't store it in the charger. Just make sure it's fully charged and set it off to the side.
Yep.
Dry location, room temp. Not in your cold garage, not out in your machine shed, right? Warm, room temp, on the shelf, dry location.
Yep.
That's going to make a huge difference. And again, that's where, you hear people say like, well, I just left it in the unit. I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
Or I leave it on the charger all year round. Don't do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just charge it 100% soft side. We used to have on the units, it used to have a storage button. You can also, another great thing to do is have your batteries at a 50% charge. The storage button on the charger, it just was really, really hard to get people to understand. We took it away.
Yeah.
And we just tell people, hey, just charge it all the way up and set it off the side.
Yep.
It's naturally going to trickle over the course of time.
Exactly.
But if it's sitting there for 8 or 9 months in between hunting seasons, you're going to be okay.
Awesome. Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And like I said earlier, that just answered my next 2 questions that I had.
I know I saw you marking all the way down to like number 4. So sorry again. I apologize that these some of my answers get really long.
No, it's great, and I think that I kind of expected that to happen. But just to clear it up, the 2 questions that he answered was, what is the best way to maintenance your unit, best way to clean it, and how should I store my batteries in the off season? So if you're here to hear that question, go back a little bit.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say, other thing about maintaining batteries, I said earlier, they're not nickel-based batteries. They don't take a set. A lot of people think that, like, well, what about if do I need to charge it up all the way the first time? Like, what about if do I need to fully deplete it?
Yeah.
You don't have to necessarily do that. Now, again, do we also recommend cycling batteries? Yeah, cycling the batteries is going to help. Cycling the batteries is like exercise.
Yeah.
So if you really want to go 100% all the way, at a minimum, charge them up, set them off to the side, room temp, dry. If you want to go all the way, every few months, just set a reminder on your phone.
Right.
Cycle my batteries. What that means is take the battery out, put it in your unit, your Ozonics unit, set it upside down outside or wherever, and just run it till the battery dies. Then charge the battery all the way back up. You've just cycled the battery. You've depleted it and fully charged it again.
Yep.
It's like exercising the battery. So you can do that every couple months if you want to.
Yeah.
That will help the life of the battery over the course of the 5-10 years.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But you don't have to necessarily do that. But that's another great thing if you really want to go all the way. Again, I'm that way, because with a lot of stuff, just because I want to make it last.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway.
Yep. All right. So the next kind of group of questions has to do with setting the unit up in a hunting situation.
Okay.
And the questions are focused on wind. And so I'm just going to kind of ask the group of questions kind of as one and then kind of let you go from there. So first one is, how do you set up the unit in relation to the wind? In one of the clips that I had, the guy said, I thought you're supposed to have the ozone blowing on you throughout the hunt. Okay. And then also it has, what do you do if there's no wind at all? And what do you do in swirling wind?
Mm-hmm.
Take it away.
Okay. So again, I understand the misconception about exhausting the ozone on you.
Yeah.
Right. Because again, my wife always razzes me. I always go back to hillbilly reasoning.
Yeah.
You know, like the redneck way of explaining things and the hillbilly reasoning of things. So I get it. Like I'm right there too. If you don't know anything about it and you just go, okay, ozone, is going to eliminate my odor. Okay, well then I'm the odor, so I'm going to have the ozone blowing on me.
Yep.
Okay, endo facto eliminated the odor. But that's not exactly what we're trying to do. What it really comes down to, before I really get into that,
Yep.
you really kind of need to understand what ozone does and doesn't do, okay? The fundamentals. First off, it's very, very unstable. We're trying to manipulate that instability.
Yep.
Ozone doesn't want to be ozone. It wants to come in contact with something and it wants to stabilize. When it comes in contact with it, oxidizes and it stabilizes. It goes from O3 ozone back to O2 oxygen, okay? So it doesn't want to be ozone. We also know that it's heavier than air. It naturally wants to fall.
Yep.
You follow me?
Yep.
Very unstable molecule. We're trying to manipulate the instability. But we also know that, ozone doesn't discriminate. It doesn't know the difference between your odor and the bark on the tree or the top of your hat or the particulate and the moisture and the humidity in the air. It doesn't know. Yep. It just knows it doesn't want to be ozone. It wants to oxidize it whenever it can come in contact with it from a molecular level. So what that boils down to, what I'm trying to say is that, first off, you don't want to just have the ozone exhausting all over you. Again, think about it like the ozone like a curtain, right? Or even just like let's back up. Don't even think about it like a curtain. Think about it like a garden hose in your yard. If I have a garden hose in my yard and I have it on the kind of setting that really sprays it all over the place, and I'm standing a foot away from the garden hose, and I've got the garden hose right here, just spraying out water, and I take my hand and I cover up part of it, all of a sudden that water just kind of falls right here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not getting pushed out in front of me.
Yeah.
You follow me?
Yep.
That's very much like ozone. If I have an ozonics above my head and I have that ozone pouring or exhausting down on my head, that ozone is oxidizing here and it's all getting used up. You follow me?
Yeah, too quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So think about the ozone like a curtain. I want to create a situation where that ozone comes in contact with your odor as quickly as possible. We want to create a situation where we're not trying to treat you. We're trying to treat the odor coming off of you.
Right.
You follow?
Yep.
So when that ozone comes out, create a curtain that all of your odor has to go through, because if it's all getting exhausted and pounded down in your head, that odor is getting in front of it.
Right, exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yep, 110%.
So a lot of people think like an ozonics is like a thermosol. Like, well, how big of an area does it cover? It's not like that.
Yeah.
We're not trying to create this thermocell area of coverage.
Right.
We're trying to create a situation where your odor is getting carried by the wind.
Yeah.
That ozone is going to get carried by the wind as well. You are the concentration of the odor. We want to create a situation where that ozone is right wherever that downwind side is.
Yeah.
Do you follow me?
Exactly.
So when your odor comes off, there's that ozone.
Yep.
You want to get it right there at the source.
Yep.
I guess just right after the source.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that when that ozone just is constantly falling and falling and falling, right, that your odor has to go through it.
Yep.
Right. So go ahead. What was the other part of that?
So, okay. So then what do you do if there's no wind to essentially push that odor?
Yep. So before I get into that, again, we're talking a lot about an open air environment here. We're talking about a tree stand. That's generally what a lot of people are thinking of when we're talking about this. We're talking about setup. So I always talk about height, direction, angle.
Yep.
We talk about height, direction, angle. So 6 to 12 inches above your head from the position that you hunt from. So I like to stand the majority of the time. So I position it above my head accordingly.
Yep.
Okay. Height and then direction. Again, always pointing in the downwind direction. We're not treating you. We're treating the odor coming off of you. Okay. So if you're listening to this, the wind's in your face. That's the upwind side. The winds and the downwind side's behind you.
Yes.
Okay. So in that situation, we would want to position the unit behind you. That's the downwind side.
Yep.
That's one of the biggest mistakes people make. And again, part of it is a narrative and a problem that we've created, right? An Ozonics advertisement in a magazine or on TV doesn't look good if a guy's sitting in a tree stand and the Ozonics is behind the tree.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it looks good when it's right above his head. I mean, we're taking pictures all the time and it's right above your head.
Yeah.
And because that's where we're trying to get it all in the picture.
Yeah.
In most pictures, it would be insinuating that the wind would be at their back going out in front of them.
Yep.
You follow me? But that's not the way most people sit. Most people sit I always call it the right way. The right stand on the right day on the right wind. They sit with the wind in their face.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. So in that situation, mount it on the side of the tree, point it behind you.
Yep.
So height, direction, and then angle. We always talk about a 30-degree angle down. And if it's above a 15-mile-an-hour wind, we want to take it more vertically straight down. In essence, on a windier day, we're trying to pour that ozone in your downwind side faster.
Yeah.
Think about it like a water bottle. If I want to pour a bottle of water out really slow, I just barely tip it. If I want to pour it out fast, I just tip it upside down.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So height, direction, angle. So that's really what you need to live and die by. And you can attest to this for me. What you'll see me do a lot is I will have the unit the 6 to 12 inches above my head, but I might not always have it right above me.
Yeah.
I might have it, like if I'm in a tree and I've got a branch right here, I might have it out on that branch.
Yeah.
Again, because then I can get it more right in my downwind side.
Exactly.
Do you follow me?
Yep.
And so that's what I would say is 6 to 12 inches above your head, always pointing that downward direction. Sometimes you can use a branch to get it more on your downwind side. That's still above your head, but it's not like directly right above you, but it's exhausting on the downwind side.
Right.
And then that angle. So I say all that to say, when you talk about what to do in no wind, first off, which I should actually show you this. I don't know how we've never talked about this. The first fall that I was at Ozonics, I kept track of every deer encounter that I had using Ozonics. And I put it in this huge Excel spreadsheet. It was like a study that I did.
Oh, really?
The first fall, yeah. I kept track of everything. I kept track of what mode I was on. I kept track of the batteries, everything, and like the deer's reaction.
Yep.
It was really interesting. I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, so I kept track of everything: the deer's reaction, the wind speed, the direction, all of it. And in all the times that I hunted that fall, again, I don't know exactly how many days it was. It was me being how I am, so it was a ton. I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I mean, I'm just like, if there's a skosh of a chance that I can go hunting,
exactly.
I'm going.
Any
like
window.
I'm not like, oh, there's a Vikings game on. Who cares about the Vikings?
Yeah.
Watch the highlights. You know, like there's no excuse to not go hunting.
Yeah.
But in all the days that I hunted that fall, there was only one day where it was quote unquote calm.
Yeah.
So
especially around here.
Oh man, yeah. So and then if you get like where you're from and you get along, we're in north central Iowa, you get along any river system, you get in bluff country.
Yeah.
Even on a calm day, thermals are doing what they do on a hillside. So calm days I believe are just really, really hard to come by. Do they happen? Yes. But just few and far between, actually. I that's the thing I was really surprised about. When I did that, I was like, wow, there's very few like really calm days.
Yeah.
Anyway, which by the way, we should do a podcast on that whole study thing.
Yeah, we should. That's super interesting.
I think you probably like freak out.
Yeah, I never knew that you did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I still have it on my computer. Anyway, so if it is a calm day where you puff your wind indicator and your wind indicator just comes out and just kind of falls straight down, your odor is doing the same thing. It's really just falling straight to the ground.
Exactly.
That's really the only time it's okay to have that unit really just kind of exhausting right down on top of you, because your odor is going down.
Yeah.
Actually, in that situation, again, where I've had those calm days, I've even, instead of having it exhausted over my head, I've actually unmounted it and mounted it like right below my seat on my tree stand and pointed it down.
Yeah.
But again, even I remember when I've done that before, like that calm doesn't usually stay for too terribly long.
No.
Do you follow me? So again, just having it above your head and exhausting it down on you, that's really the only situation where it's okay to have it really pointing down on you, because your odor is really just going straight down.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would really suggest be puffing your wind indicator, because those calms don't last usually very long.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Okay. What else was there?
The next one is what do you do in a swirling wind?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the other one we get a ton is swirling winds. And swirling winds are going to be one of the hardest things for an ozonics,
Definitely.
right? Because we always talk about chasing the wind. Just like I said, height, direction, angle. It's all about getting that ozone in the downwind side. So if all of a sudden that wind switches, your odor is getting in front of the ozone.
Yeah,
You follow me? Does that make sense? So the biggest thing I say with that is, I mean, you know that I'm this way. I'm puffing my wind indicator constant. I'm always checking. And or the other thing that I do is I use the ozone a lot of times as my wind indicator. Meaning if we're sitting in a spot where we're sitting in the right wind, where it's in my face, and I've got, let's just say it's off my left shoulder over here. Let's just, for the camera's sake, let's do it on this side.
Okay.
Let's say the downwind side is over my right shoulder, and I've got it pointed off to my right behind me.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I catch a real big puff of ozone. That's a great indicator that the wind is switched.
Yeah.
There's been times that I've hunted with other friends that are like, that I don't puff my wind indicator. I'm like, the wind just switched. And they're looking at me like I'm like, like touching the tree and it's talking to me. You know what I mean? Like, well, how'd you know that?
It's a magic trick.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, how'd you know the wind switched? And I was like, I smelled the ozone. And then they're like, oh, geez, that makes total sense. So if you smell the ozone, that's a great indicator the wind is switched. If you're using Ozonics the right way, you shouldn't be smelling it.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to exhaust on the downwind side.
Yep.
So if you're smelling it, okay, I need to adjust what I'm doing.
Set up
I'm not setting it up the right way.
Yep.
The only time you should be smelling it really is if it's a calm day and you got to just pour it over your head.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, we're exhausting the downwind side. I've taken so many people out with an Ozonics, and you hear guys say, people say this to me numerous times, turn it on. I'm like, man, dude, it's on.
Yeah.
Like, just because you smell it doesn't mean it's not working.
Right.
We don't need to be smelling. I don't need to smell it to know that it's doing its thing.
Yeah.
If I smell it, that means I need to start adjusting.
Yeah, exactly.
So swirling winds can get tough. The person that's just getting into an Ozonics and they've got one, that's where you're going to have to be adjusting it. Mm-hmm. We run into a lot of people at the consumer shows, guys we talk about the stages of scent control. If it's like stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and stage 3 is you've bought an Ozonics, or stage 4 is you're the hardcore guy.
Yep.
Guy or girl. The hardcore guy or girl is going to probably, if they're hunting real switchy winds or it's just a real tricky day, they may set up 2 of them.
Right.
We've done that.
Oh, yeah.
Or when we go out together, where we maybe are sitting, like if we set for camera or just to hunt together, one guy at 6 o'clock and one guy at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And let's just say the wind's kind of blowing towards 7 o'clock. Well, our scent is kind of together.
Yeah.
But we'll set one over at 7 o'clock, but we may point one at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if that wind switches, you're kind of looking ahead on your phone to see, it's a northwest, west, north. It's, you can see when it may start to switch.
Yeah.
But again, moral of the story on chasing on swirling winds is you got to try to chase it.
Yep.
Do the best you can to get that ozone on the downwind side.
Yep.
And that might mean you have to adjust it.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's the great thing about the Ozonics Smart Arm mounting system. Even with our original mounting system with the extension arm, you have the versatility to get it out there and get it moved around.
Yeah.
But that is a challenge because, it is a gas. You know, it's going to go wherever the wind is going. You know what I mean? And even if it exhausted out in multiple directions, it's still going to come out and go the direction
that way. Yeah.
that the wind is. You know what I mean? So, again, the most effective way is to get that front of the unit pointed in the downwind direction. Just adjust it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and one of these questions too was, do you worry about the wind at all when it comes to using Ozonics? And it's like, yes, but probably in a different way than somebody worries about the wind that doesn't use Ozonics, because we're worried about the wind in the fact that we're worried about how we have the unit set up. So again, you answered another question.
Well, I think the other thing, sometimes that's a loaded question that we try to I almost think guys kind of try to they feel like they're going to
stump us.
Yeah, bait me into it. Yeah. You know what I mean? We're at the seminar this year and a guy raised his hand on Saturday when there was there was 50 some people on there.
Yeah.
And he raised his hand. He was asking a few questions and he's like, so do you hunt the wind? And you could tell he was looking, he was like, ha. So do you hunt the wind? He wanted to kind of get me on it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, dude, I totally understand where you're coming from. And I have gone on record numerous times, and there's probably people that don't like it. You know what I mean? Because I run into people that are like, well, I can't believe you'd say that. I'm like, well, that's just what I do. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, but my whole thing is that so the guy that asks, I'm sorry for the big disclaimer. When guy asks, do you still hunt the wind? Yes, absolutely. I do still hunt the wind. Mm-hmm. Do I hunt the wind every day of the season? Nope, I don't.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to for me. However many years ago, I don't remember exactly when it happened, but it was while I was working at Ozonics, I kind of had this epiphany. that I realized that like I had spent a lot of time over my hunting career hunting the wind
Yeah.
and not really hunting the deer.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you follow me?
Yep.
And I feel like I just had the realization. It's like, you know what, man, like I'm going to stop hunting the wind and I'm going to start hunting the deer.
Yeah.
I asked that question throughout the season, throughout the year. We will be setting tree stands long before season starts.
Yeah.
You know, during the summer, we're setting stands. In the early spring, we're setting stands. We're moving stands. I am constantly asking myself, where do I set stands for the wind and where do I set stands for the deer? As you're listening to this, think about your favorite piece of hunting property, your favorite spot, your go-to, the back 40, whatever you call it. Like if you're going to go out and you can only hunt one spot, where are you going to go? And everybody knows what it is. And if I asked you right now, where do you have stands set for the wind? Every person looks at me and says the same thing. Well, I've already got them all there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right there with you. Okay. Now ask yourself, where would I set stands for the deer? Not where do I set stands for the wind? Where do I set stands for the deer? Well, 95% of the time, guys look at you and they go, well, those are different spots.
Yeah.
Yes, they are different spots.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is that when it's the beginning of the season, when it's the whole month of October, unless there's a dynamite cold front,
Yeah.
I'm hunting the wind.
Yeah.
I respect the wind. I grew up hunting the wind. But what I'm saying is when it's the time's right, you know, we always talk about hunting the right way. It's the right day on the right stand on the right wind. Dude, I remember as a young man I was like a teenager and in my early 20s watching outdoor television and hearing people talk and going to seminars and hearing guys be like, well, you know, if it's the wrong wind or whatever, like I might just not hunt.
Yeah.
And I remember that connotation and that like thought process. Like I was like, well, geez, like the right thing to do is not go. Yeah. I'm like, that was like a foreign concept. Like, dude, I can't do that. Like, what do you mean not go? I'm not going to not go hunting.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people fall into it. It's almost like there's this kind of like, there's this underground understanding of what really people, like real people do. You know, like we hear it all the time. Guys like, oh man, I'm going. Yeah. The wind's wrong or right, I'm going. I'm hunting. Like, that's my day. Heck, if you live in Pennsylvania, you can't even hunt on Sundays.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't hunt on Sundays. Yeah. You can't on Sundays.
Yeah.
So like you hunt on Saturday and that's it.
Yeah.
You work 5 days a week. You go to church on Sunday probably because you don't have you know there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
You should go to church anyway. If you don't go to church, whatever. You know what I mean? Like my wife gets mad if I skip church. But you don't hunt on Saturday?
Yeah.
And if the wind's wrong, you're not supposed to go?
Yeah.
Like what? You know? And so, you know, for me, I was going to hunt. And so that's a big thing I would say is when the time's right and having a full-time job and married and kids and everything else, like I can't hunt all the time.
Yeah.
It's not about hunting the right day. It's about hunting right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what I'm saying is I do hunt the wind, but when it's November 10th, 11th, 18th, the 7th, when all of a sudden I've got them on the hoof during the day, like I'm going to push the envelope and I'm going to go in and I'm going to hunt aggressively. I always talk about the rule of 10. Think about right now, not about the deer you've shot, the deer that you didn't, that you had really close encounters with. Imagine if you could get the extra 10 feet, 10 seconds, 10 yards, 10 steps.
Yeah. Yep.
What type of deer could you have harvested? And for me, that's what the Ozonics does. It gives me that little extra, that little extra 10. You know what I mean? Where I'll hunt that real iffy win where I know that buck thinks that he has the advantage.
Yeah.
We call those, just like the podcast is called, we call those killer wins.
Yeah. Yes.
Those wins when that buck thinks that he can walk down that tree line or walk down that ridge because he can smell what's in his face. Well, guess what? I'm sitting there waiting for him.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the time he stops and checks and like I'm already at full draw bearing down on him.
Yeah.
And that's what it can do.
Exactly.
You know, so that's my whole thing. Like, yes, hunt the wind. That's fine. And that's the other thing I tell people too. If you buy an Ozonics, don't do a thing any different.
Yep.
Hunt the way you hunt. Hunt the right way. Right stand, right day, right wind. Don't do a thing different. Exhaust the ozone on the downwind side and watch what happens.
Yep.
Because, dude, how many people have I said that to? You heard me last year.
Hundreds.
That was your first consumer show season last year in 2023. Watch me tell guys, all right, man, buy one, hunt the way you hunt. Don't do anything different. Exhaust it and downwind side and watch what happens. Because what you're going to see is what everybody sees. You're going to have deer being on the downwind side, and you're going to say there's no possible way.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is the light bulb's going to go on, and then your wheels are going to start to turn, and then you're going to say, what else can I get away with?
Yep, exactly.
And then you come back here next year, and you look at me and say, you told me so.
Yep.
And how many guys walk back?
Quite a bit.
They walk back and
It
go,
happened.
they're
Like, seriously.
They're like, guys are like, hey, man, you remember? I'm like, yes, I do. And they're like,
you were right.
you're right. And it's not even that I'm right. Ozonics was right.
Yeah.
Ozonics was right. I mean, dude, that's what it'll do. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds pitchy. Like, I'm sorry, but it's just the way that it is.
It's just the truth.
Dude, I came back from Colorado after guiding Scott on that elk hunt, and I had that moment where I saw it work at a big mature doe out at you have to beat my mouth too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. But yeah, and that doe walked directly downwind, and I remember seeing that, like, and I saw it in Colorado, but it was like something where I was actually holding the bow, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Because that was I could just feel it, like this explosion in my head of like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm gonna be able to do now.
Yep.
This is gonna be sick.
Yeah.
And it's been like that for me ever since.
Exactly.
There's still times that I'm like, how did that deer get downwind and not know I was there?
Yep.
And that's what it can do for you. So do I hunt the wind? Yes. But do I also not hunt the wind? Yes.
Yes. A little bit more about setup. I feel like we've had a lot of people kind of talk about running the unit upside down.
Yes.
If you could go quickly through that.
Yeah. Sorry. I like how you said quickly.
No, it's just because it's one random question, kind of.
I'm just razzing you. Okay. So the thing I always say about running it upside down, it's funny. Again, when I first started Ozonics here, that wasn't something that I don't think many people are doing or even thought about. Mm-hmm. And then even me, like I didn't. And then one time it was like a pretty calm day. Like the wind wasn't like howling, and it was just super quiet out there.
Yep.
And I looked up, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna turn this thing upside down. So I just turned it a half turn on the mounting system, ran upside down. I always tell people, think about the unit and especially the fan like a speaker. Mm-hmm. Man, we've all been that guy that's taken our cell phone and put it in a solo cup, right? Like, you know, little redneck speaker action. Yep. If you take that solo cup with your phone in there and I point it at you, you're going to hear it like clear as day. If I point it over here, it just sounds quieter.
Yeah.
Think about that fan like a speaker. If I can direct the speaker away from you and have that noise rather than going down in your head, it's pointing back up in the sky. It's just going to be perceived quieter.
Yep, exactly.
You know, do I think deer ever hear the unit? No. Dude, I've got how many videos and pictures where deer are literally, I'm spitting on them.
Yeah.
They don't hear the dang thing. We've done decibel tests where 10, 15 feet up in the air, turn the unit on and off in different modes. You can't hear, decibel meter doesn't do a thing different.
Yeah.
But does it affect my ability to hear? Yes, it can, right? Like I've already got hearing loss, so I'm already at a disadvantage. That's a great thing about the 500. It's even quieter.
Yeah.
But still, you run it upside down to make it even quieter yet. So there's a lot of the year that I'm running mine upside down. It's not going to affect the performance of the unit.
Yeah.
It's an air bearing on the inside of that fan. It's not going to make a difference to that.
Yeah.
It's going to pull air through. It's going to push it over that coil. Tomato. If you want it to be quieter, run it upside down.
Yep.
Again, be careful that leaves and debris or bark isn't falling down in there. You know what I mean? You don't want to be like rubbing up against a tree above the unit, let it all fall in there.
Yep.
But for the most part, shouldn't be a problem.
Yep.
The mounting system will hold it. You know what I mean? That's the great thing about the easy mount stud. It snaps down onto the easy mount receiver, and you won't have any trouble with it falling off. Guys like, oh, he's going to hold that thing? It'll hold it.
Yeah, it will.
It'll hold it. So just, if you want to quiet it down, run it upside down. Yep. Again, same rules, height, direction, angle. So you maybe have to go a little higher with your mounting system because obviously it's going to be, instead of you being up here, it's going to be down here.
Yep.
But I run it upside down all the time.
Yep. All right, next batch of questions.
One thing last thing to say, run it upside down, or, you think about running it just like this, but the other thing, sometimes I end up just running it like this. Instead of running it horizontally upside down, I run it more vertically.
Yeah.
Where it's just, the big thing is just pointing it away from you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Because you saw me do that. I've seen me do that a lot where it's not even that it's just so much upside down. It's just away.
Yeah.
Next batch.
The next batch is going to be a little bit about kind of almost pre-hunt routine. Like, should you still wash your clothes? Do you still spray down? And then a little further into the question is, if you do a dry wash cycle, if that's part of your routine, how long do the clothes kind of stay scent free?
Yep. Okay, so the big thing I'll say with that right there, and again, maybe I'm getting real, it's a technicality, but I always stop people on do you, should you.
Yeah.
Do you, like do you? If you're asking me what I do and what you should do, here's my thing. Before I even get into that, again, you're asking me what I do.
Yeah.
And what should you do? You need to do what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
But with that said, here's what I think it boils down to. And this is where I think scent control has gone now. I look at scent control, whether it's ozonics or passive forms of scent control, sprays, whatever that might be, whatever type of stuff you're doing for your clothing and shampoos and conditioners and how you get cleaned up and it can go to the moon and back. The way I look at it, I think about everything as building blocks.
Yeah.
All these things build. I hear people say all the time, well, it can't hurt. Well, I can't hurt. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. It's got to help. Can't hurt.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right. In my experience, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, in my experience, before Ozonics, it didn't matter if I gave an inch or a mile.
Yep.
I was still giving.
Oh.
What it boiled down to is when I got deer on the downwind side, they winded me. Pre-Ozonics.
Yep.
100% of the time. I mean, I've done everything like a lot of guys have. I've done all the shampoos and soaps and washes and, washing your clothes right, drying them the right way, storing them the right way, supposedly, sprays and special clothes on the way in, special clothes in the truck, spraying in when you get in there,
Yep.
Scent wafers on your hat, cover scents. I mean, I've done all of it pre-Ozonics. And what happened when I got deer on the downwind side is they winded me. That's what it boiled down to.
Right.
It didn't matter if I gave an inch or mile, I was still giving. Mm-hmm. And so when I started using Ozonics, it was really the only thing that I saw work.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I stopped doing all of it.
Yeah.
Before Ozonics. I just stopped. I just wear my regular deodorant and never wash my clothes because it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Is that the way everybody feels? No. I definitely think I'm probably the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
A lot of people fall into this building block mentality that they need to do all these things. The interesting thing, though, is when you ask them, the building block guy, hey, man, what happens when you get deer on the downwind side?
They win me.
Without Ozonics, what happens? Dude, I'm not lying, am I? Every single guy says,
Well, they win me.
They win me. How often? Well, all the time. What percent? 100% of the time. What do you mean, how much of the time?
Yeah.
So why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I always ask. Like, if you believe in these other types of things you're doing and you get deer on the downwind side and they wind you, you're telling me it's not working. I'm not telling you. You're telling me, bro. Your experience has taught you that. Well, what about if the other one that I always ask is okay, your target buck, like the buck that you're targeting last year, you hope he made it through that guy? Yep. All right. Hypothetically, you 100% know he's going to walk by that stand. Like he is going to walk by your best stand, but the wind's completely wrong. What do you do? And every guy or gal can't go in there.
Yeah.
Why not? Well, I can't hunt that stand. Why not? Well, because the wind's wrong. Okay, dude, but what you really just told me is that your experience has taught you that if you go in there, you're going to get winded. Your experience has taught you that whatever you're doing right now isn't really working.
Yeah.
So I say all of that to get back to the do you, should you know what I mean? I think you should do what works.
Yeah, exactly.
And for me, the only thing I found that works is in Ozonics.
Yeah, exactly.
Do I do any of the other stuff? No. And Nick he's a testament to know that that I am telling the 100% truth. I don't do any of it.
No. Yeah.
I don't do any of it.
I'll maybe toss some deodorant on, some scent-free deodorant.
The only thing
That's
that
about all I do.
The only thing I do, and it's kind of funny. It just started happening because our kids have very sensitive skin. And it's interesting. Like there's so many companies now that like mainstream companies that make like no dye, scent free, unscented.
Yep.
So we use a lot of that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Do I have like an unscented bar of soap like in my shower? Yeah. Like if I do, I do. Like if I don't, I'm still just taking a shower.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? But But yeah, I'm not spraying down. I don't have special clothes and containers. And, do I try to dress light on the way in? Do I try to do actively what I can do to try to not get sweated up? And
Yeah, exactly.
yes. But like, I'm not doing near what a lot of people are doing.
No.
And that's just me.
Yeah.
You have to do what's right for you. Again, I think everybody uses these scent control things as building blocks to get over this hurdle of hypothetical success, you know? But I just really challenge those people to say, ask themselves, why are you really doing what you're doing?
Yeah, exactly.
So does that answer the question?
Yeah, 110% it does.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
What
answer.
should you do or should you do?
Yeah.
It's really up to you, man.
No, yeah, I like that answer too. That's a good answer.
Because I think that there is a, and it's interesting because like, I think there are other, I don't know, and this is maybe a little bit of assumption, but again, I say this from my own experience. I remember going to consumer shows and I remember watching stuff and hearing people say, you should do this. You need to do this. Like, and maybe we come off that way too. I don't know. But yeah, I'm just telling you where I'm coming from.
Yeah, definitely.
And just why do you do what you do, and really ask yourself, because like we've talked about the stages of scent control.
Right.
I think that if you fall on the stage where you're pre-ozonics, generally speaking, you get on the downwind side, you get winded.
Yeah, definitely.
With ozonics, you have a fighting chance to get away with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
one of the things that I know that we do is we dry wash our clothes with the dry wash bag, one locker. How long will those clothes kind of stay, scent free after you, like as soon as you pull them out of the locker? How long do you got?
Yep. So the big thing I say about the dry wash bag and the one locker, again, we talk about active and passive scent control.
Yep.
Active scent control is actively continually eliminating your odor. Passive scent control being that the effectiveness degrades very quickly.
Yep.
Sprays, cover scents, clothing, right? It just falls off.
Yep.
The reality is that using ozone in the dry wash bag, using ozone in the one locker, it falls into that passive category.
Yeah.
So you talk about, first off, nothing's ever going to be scent free, quote unquote. Okay. That's my first thing. But I will say, how long does it last? It lasts until you take it out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The minute you take that stuff out of that dry wash bag, that one locker, it's going to start gathering odor again.
Right.
That's why we call it the one locker, the ozone neutral environment, right? So that it's in there, it's controlled, right? You're eliminating a lot of the variables. You know what I'm saying? But the minute that you open that bag up and start taking it out and touching it and messing with it, it's going to start gathering odor again.
Right.
So don't think about it like you've got like, oh, I take it out and I've got an hour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the reality is from a microscopic level, dude, if you could put some sort of like super high definition magnified camera on my arm right here and I went like this, you would see all this just skin, like dried skin and just dander and everything else just like coming off my body. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And you'd be like, whoa, you know, like, dude, I mean, if we had a thermal camera here, you would literally just see this. I mean, I'm full of hot air, obviously, but just be exhausting. Yeah. If I took my hat off, you would just see my head look like a torch. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so the reality is that the effectiveness of that ozone on your clothing, it falls off very fast because it's, again, you're introducing it to new odors again.
Exactly.
Do you follow me?
Yep.
So the thing that I say about the dry wash bag and the one locker, the way, from my perspective, what that does for me, again, because your clothing does gather odor, right? It can start to smell. I mean, it's just like, it's not, I mean, you get done at the end of the day, especially if you walk out with it on, you smell, you're like, wow. You know, that smells like a fart, you know? So instead of having to wash my clothes, 3 or 4 days a week, I maybe only wash them once every couple weeks, once a week at the most, and I dry wash them instead. We always talk about, I love all the awesome camos that are out there, whether it's Sitka, whether it's First Light, whether it's Kuyu, whether it's Code of Silence. There's a bunch of good stuff out there now. I mean, like we kind of live in the golden age of camouflage. I mean, we really do. Like we really have everything like right at our fingertips. Fit, function,
whatever
look.
you need.
Yeah, I mean, does it really make a difference to an ant, to a deer's eyes and whatever? I don't know. You know what I mean? But like, sure makes us feel and look cool. You know what I mean? Like, So, but my point is that like it's all high end camo. Yeah. But I also say a lot. It can be High maintenance.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to read the label of how to wash stuff? Oh my gosh, good luck.
That's like a foot long.
Oh, dude, all I know how to do is just throw it in and put the stuff in there and press start.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But what we do know is that the more you wash your clothes, the more it wears out. You follow me?
Yep.
So instead of, like, if you think about over the course of the season, if you're washing your clothes twice a week for 8 weeks, do the math.
Yeah.
Or you could wash your clothes every other week and dry wash them the rest of the time.
Yeah.
That's at a minimum. A lot of guys are washing them. Dude, pre-Ozonics, I used to wash my clothes after every hunt.
Yeah.
All the time. And all of a sudden you just see stuff wearing out. Well, it's not cheap. They're not giving it away.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that's for me where the dry wash locker, the one locker comes in. The one locker too is we got so much guffle for so long about, like, well, dry wash bag's too small. I understand. You know what I mean? It's meant that you can put it in the, under the seat of a truck, or if you're going to be staying in a hotel, it can fit in your luggage. But the one locker is bigger.
Yeah.
So if you want to set it up in your shop, set up in your garage, in your basement, it's a great place where all your gear can go.
And then it just stays there.
Just stays there. Yep. I mean, you're rubbing off on me because sometimes Nick's a little forgetful every once in a while. Like today when he forgot his sweatshirt.
Yeah, I forgot my sweatshirt.
But your forgetfulness sometimes wears off of me.
Yeah.
Since you've been here, I have forgot my cell phone at my house and didn't realize it until I got here. And God knows you can't live without your cell phone for a full day. So I got to drive all the way back home to get it. But so it's nice to be able to know that, hey, that's where my favorite hat, my favorite gloves,
Yeah, exactly.
my sweatshirt, my base layer, my backpack,
My boots.
my grunt call, it's all in there.
Yeah.
So that's what is so nice about that from my perspective.
Yep. All right. We're getting really close to the end here.
You're not ticking them off as you go anymore.
Yeah, I know. Well,
I've been glancing at the tick marks. Come on, catch up on your tick marks. Come on. Okay, there we go. Okay. All
right. Next one is hunting with an Ozonics in a blind. I feel like we get a lot of people who ask, how do you set up? How do you set it up with the blind?
Yep.
What if I hunt with all the windows closed? Mm-hmm. Take it away.
Yep. So I feel like as the years pass by here, season after season, I think that hunting in ground blinds has gotten more and more and more popular.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't think that, just drive down any paved road or gravel road in the state of Wisconsin. It's a little crazy.
Shooting houses everywhere.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
It's wild.
Every year that we go to the Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin Open Season Sportsman's Expo, too long of a name. Every year we go to that, we drive down the interstate, go by Sparta and then head that way.
Yep.
And it's just even just right off the interstate.
Yeah.
And it's just like, shoot now. Even Susie noticed that.
Yeah.
She was rubbernecking, looking around like, whoa, you see that?
Yeah.
Hey, there was 2 on that field, But it's become more and more popular.
Yeah.
And believe me, I'm right there with you. 10 years ago, I only hunted out of a ground blind for turkey hunting, especially with my recurve bow, trying to get close to them with decoys and stuff. Now I hunt out of a lot more. I have kids. It's nice to be able to get away with a little bit of movement, to put a little heater in there, to keep them warm. You know what I mean? We shot a doe, a real nice doe, January 10th during late muzz, set a ground blind along a tree line and it worked out great.
Yeah.
So blind hunting has gotten more and more popular. But there is this connotation that you're like, we explained how to set it up in an open air environment, and you hear a lot of people that just do that in a ground blind.
Yeah.
We get that question and they just say, oh yeah, man, I put it above my head or behind me in the ground blind just to run it in there. First off, that's way wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't do that.
Don't do it that way. And here's what it boils down to. Again, what you really have to focus on, if you're trying to think about it like a tree stand, we're not treating you. We're treating the air coming off of you.
Yep.
In a ground blind, we're not treating the air in the blind. We're trying to treat the air leaving the blind.
Yep, exactly.
The air leaving the blind is what's getting to the deer.
Yep.
You follow me?
Yep.
So stop putting it inside the blind. That's not what we're trying to do. Or stop putting it behind you inside the blind.
Yeah.
It's okay to have it inside the blind, but exhaust it out that window in the downwind direction.
Yep.
So when we talk about setup, that's number one. Not the air in the blind, the air leaving.
Yep.
Figure out the downwind side. So generally speaking, most people are sitting in blinds when the wind's in their face. It's blown in that front window.
Yep.
Okay. In that situation, you would want to position that unit behind you on one of the windows behind you.
Yep.
Okay. What you also want to do is you want to, if you can, try to create a draft. Let the air in, let the air out.
Yep.
That sometimes is tricky for people because, again, you have to be careful not to silhouette yourself, right? You open a window behind you in a dark blind, and obviously you move past that, and you're just like, oh, there you are.
Yeah.
So I get that. But a lot of times what I'll do is if it's just like a pop-up blind, or even just a hard blind, you can just slightly open the window or just put it between the window and the wall, the material.
Yep.
Just get it in that outside that going on the downwind side. If you had all the windows shut and you puffed your wind indicator, that wind indicator is going to go up and it just isn't going to know what to do.
Yeah.
If you create that draft, let the air in and out, and you puff your wind indicator, it's going to go just right out that window. I mean, that's just how it works.
Yeah.
So again, not the air in the blind, the air leaving the blind, getting it out, exhausting out the window in the downward direction. If you can get it above that window, inside the blind, but kind of pointing out, that's best, right?
Even better.
Yep. Again, there's less variables in a closer environment. You have a ceiling, a floor, walls. You're eliminating the variables. You can really bottleneck by creating that draft where that odor is going out, and that ozone can be right there to come in contact with and oxidize.
Yeah.
It can be a slam dunk in ground blinds.
Works great.
It really is, because again, it's just you're eliminating so many variables that an open air environment, the challenges that an open environment really, gives you. You follow me?
Yeah, exactly.
But the other thing I would say too about that is we have a lot of people that go, okay, well, I understand what you're saying about how to set it up, and I won't just put it above my head anymore. Like, okay, thumbs up. But then they also say, yeah, but man, I don't like to open windows at all. I don't want to have windows open at all. I won't open windows till I see a deer walk out in the field.
Yeah.
And I understand that. In that situation, if you really do want to keep your windows shut all the way, then the thing I would say to do is try to position the Ozonics outside the blind, but get it on the downwind side.
Yeah.
The tricky thing about that, the real disadvantage is you can't adjust it.
Yeah.
You're exposing movement, and chance the deer might see you, in maybe a spot that you can't see as well. You know what I mean? But if you really want to have the windows all shut up, just make sure you're exhausting that, out of the blind on the downwind side.
Yeah.
If you don't have it inside the blind at all, then you could probably run it on boost mode outside rather than just standard mode.
Yep.
Like you need a ground blind.
Yep.
So that's what I would say about that. But again, I would prefer, and I would rather do the whole let the air in, let the air out. Now, maybe that is a little bit of a colder sit,
Yeah.
Than just keeping all the windows super shut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Yep. All right, final question.
Holy cow.
You've done a great job.
Man, you've been making a bunch of tick marks.
Yeah.
You're like, sha, sha.
And a tick mark, and another tick mark, and another tick mark. If that pen could talk, that's what it would sound like.
Yep.
Okay.
How should I decide on what Ozonics to buy?
Man, that's a tough one. Well, not really. I shouldn't say that's a tough one. That's one thing that I think that again, and another ticky.
And a big old tick mark.
Sorry, he just made another tick mark.
Last one.
Last tick. Pen drop. This is one thing that I think that we always talk about here day to day in our Mason City office when we're talking to customers. And this really ramps up as we go into the fall because we have a lot of people that want to call in and talk and just have conversation. They've been looking at them.
Yep.
They're trying to decide. The one thing that I think we really hang our hat on is it's not about which one we want. It's what best fits your needs.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you follow me? That's the one I want you to buy.
Yeah.
I think that people are really refreshed by that at the shows when, they walk up and they think that I'm going to try to sell them or make them buy an HR 500 and come to find out they exclusively hunt in ground blinds and the HR 230 is a perfect option for them.
Exactly.
And they're like, so you're telling me like, I don't have to buy this one. I can save a couple $100 on this one. I'm like, yeah, man, like that one fits what you need.
Yeah.
They really appreciate that.
Yeah.
You're like, well, thanks, man. Like, that's awesome. It's like, yeah, I'm like, we really appreciate you being honest and not just like pressuring me into this other one. I'm like, no, dude, like, it's not about what I want. Like, It's what do you need?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not about what I want. It's what do you need? And if that's one that you need, let's get you that one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, so when it comes down to which Ozonics should I buy, right off the bat, I mean, I know this does sound a little pitchy, but I would buy one. You know what I mean? Like having an Ozonics is better than not having one. You know what I mean? Like, so again, and I mean in that in the fact of, for me, my experience taught me before I ever worked at Ozonics, if I didn't have Ozonics, I got winded. With an Ozonics, I had a chance. So that's my first thing I would say. But really, like you said, when you talk about the HR 230, you talk about HR 300, you talk about the HR 500, I think about it kind of like good, better, best.
Yep.
And really, as you move up from one to the next, you increase in ozone, you increase in battery life. So you just have to really decide, what do you value?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Do you value ozone output? Do you value runtime?
Yep.
Do you value price? Where is it, right? The person that walks up and they're like, man, I'm not 100% about, I think I need one of these things, but I just don't want to spend I don't know if I want to make that first investment in the HR 500. Is it okay to have the 230? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I ran the HR 200 for 5 years before I worked at Ozonics, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I ran it I really did have great luck with it.
Yeah.
And that was producing 30% less than the 230.
Right.
And had great luck with it. So, what we tell people a lot is, if you're the type of person that exclusively hunts in ground blinds, the HR 230 is the unit for you, right? You don't need the extra ozone output.
Exactly.
You really don't need the extra battery life either, because you're running on a standard bone to ground blind. But if you are sitting in tree stands, you're doing a lot of tree stand hunting, that's where the 300 and the HR 500 can really, really shine.
Yeah.
HR 300 is a great option. Again, you get the standard boost mode, dry wash mode. You get 45% more ozone than the 230.
Yeah.
Where the HR 500 really steps up is you get the quieter.
Yeah.
You hear a lot of people say, man, I switched a little bit quieter. The 500 fits that bill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, if you're that hardcore guy that you're like, listen, dude, I want the best, that's the 500.
Yep.
Buy that one. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, I just think it really comes down to, what are your needs? The other thing that we hear a lot about, like when it comes to Ozonics units, is with a lot of people, I feel like this has gotten more and more popular. I mean, heck, look at you and I last year, hunted a lot together.
Yeah.
A lot of guys are hunting with buddies, hunting with a video camera. One guy filming, one guy shooting. That a lot of people are like, well, do I need multiple Ozonics? Can we just get away with one? One Ozonics is meant for one person.
Yeah.
So it is good to have a unit over each person's head.
Yeah, definitely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
But again, don't think that you can't hunt with an HR 230 in a tree stand too. You can.
Yeah.
So it's just really, you have to decide, what do you value?
Yep.
Is it the ozone output? Is it the run time? The 230 and 300 come with a 4-hour battery on boost mode. The 500 comes with an XL battery, right? That's an 8-hour battery.
Yep.
You can buy extra batteries.
Yeah.
Everything else is in the box. Mounting systems, charger, all that you need is in each of the boxes.
Yeah.
But it just comes down to ozone, runtime, and price.
Yep.
And what is the thing that you value the most? Or which two of the three do you value the most?
Yeah.
If you're like, man, I really want runtime and I want ozone output. Okay, well, here you go. It's our 500. If you're like, man, listen, I really value price. I'm not as worried about runtime, but ozone is important to me too. HR 230 is a great option. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Or if you're the guy that's like, man, I'm kind of conscious about price, but it's more about ozone for me, than maybe, or it's maybe, like more ozone than the 230. I don't know if I want the 500. 300 is a great option.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So, and we kind of, that's the whole idea with, the way it's kind of worked out with the kind of good, better, best.
Yep.
That's what I would say when it comes to all that.
Perfect.
Does that make sense?
Yep. All right. That's all I got.
That's all you got.
That's all I got.
Holy cow. It's been an hour and a half.
Yeah, you did a good
But
job.
you know what? You're Mr. Slick Editor, so who knows? It might not even be an hour and a half. This time it'll only be like an hour and 18 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm guessing hour and 8 minutes.
I know what it's going to be, and I'm going to, oh wait, hour and 8 minutes?
Yes.
That's pretty close to that. It's pretty close to that.
Oh.
I'm gonna say you're about 3 minutes off. Not gonna tell you which way.
You can't just you can't keep me talking just to make it hit your number.
Okay.
No, but I think this was good. Like I said, if that would be the other thing that I would say as well is if you do have questions,
Yeah.
you know, don't be afraid to reach out to us. Our phone number, it's right on the website. It's 979-285-2401.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to give us a call. If you have a question, reach out. One thing that we take a lot of pride in is our customer service.
Right.
I mean, we will answer the phone. If we don't answer, we will call you back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we're always blown away by how many people are like, man, like, you know, or they'll call and they for some reason change their mind when they hear us say hello, they hang up. Like, we'll call you back. And they're like, thanks for calling me back. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so we call back.
Yep.
Give us a shout. We'd love to talk to you. The other thing too is there's a great Q&A section on our website that you can read through. There's
Yep.
tons of videos on our website. You can also go onto YouTube. We've got tons of stuff. But again, if there's something that doesn't get covered, shoot us a DM on Instagram or any of the other social platforms. Like, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to reach out because, again, sometimes there are things. It's funny, you think that we've heard everything, and there every once in a while we get ones that still are like, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we try to cover our bases with everything that we put in the manual and on the website. And again, we've been doing this for a while now, so we feel like we've really kind of covered all those bases, but there still might be things that come up.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to reach out.
Yep.
We'd love to hear from you.
Yep.
All right, let's end it. Another podcast in the books. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast done.
Done. See you next week.
Next time, Cole Tanner. Stay classy.